I bought this 2007 Polaris Sportsman 500 for 500 bucks. Now on Marketplace, the guy said he had the title. It ran when it was parked and it would not start anymore. They parked it due to rear axle. Looks like someone tried to fix it with duct tape. He was asking 600 and I told him I would pay the 600 if it was everything he said it was. Except for when I got there, he could not find the title to it. Here in Oklahoma, they don't require them. So that's really, it's not a big deal, but it was something I wanted as a part of this one. So far, the main damages I've noticed is when we got there, he said, hey, this thing will start up. But we put power to it and he showed me, yes, it would start up with carb cleaner sprayed directly into the intake. But that intake being that nice big hole in the intake boot right there. Another reason they said they parked it was this steering stem bushing. That's not a big deal. There's a few things on this that are going to be dealt with for sure. The front storage box was broken completely off, including the lid. So the base is trash. The headlight is zip tied on and I don't know if that's broken or not. I'm gonna have to figure something out for a ring on that right there. Looks like this rear rack is a little bit broken. Now, I have a lot of these parts, if not everything, to fix this. The front storage box, the front storage box lid. They're not perfect, but they'll get the job done. A new front fascia because this one's broken too, right there. The footwell's broken. Another air box because the air box is broken. I just got a ton of these Sportsman parts laying around, including a rear rack. I'll probably end up replacing this rear rack. Yeah, it looks like that front master cylinder cover is partially broken. I don't know if I have that. But that means the Sportsman 800 is gonna come to end of life here. And this one will make good parts for other units to be able to bring everything back to life. Because I'm gonna use that lower storage box, the rear axle, and the fuel pump, as well as one of these side covers, this one right here. Here's our intake boot. Hopefully that'll actually fit. I don't know that for sure. And then anything else we could possibly need. I was hoping to make this an extremely nice unit. It looked a little better in the photos than it did in person, and sometimes that's just how it is. Like we got these scrapes up here, and I'm not trying to track one of those down in red. These are, I have rarely ever seen this red color. Now a lot of the stuff, Polaris was real good about making everything of a certain generation fit. So this is an 07, the 800 over there is an 07. So the fuel pump, axle, all that will fit this. It's gonna need a battery as well, the battery on its shot, a seat cover. I need to figure out what I'm gonna do here. It looks like they relocated the ignition up here because once that steering stem bushing was out, if you turn it, it hits the gas cap. Now, that might mean the rod is also bent because those scratches right there, I'm thinking occurred from this thing somehow ending up upside down. I'm gonna take some of this other stuff off, whatever that's from. This has heated grips on it, which I've never rode with being down here in the South. When it gets cold, we just don't ride, or I don't. Got some decent tires. The rears aren't fantastic, but the fronts are good. Oil look good. I've got oil filter. It's probably gonna need some bushings. I can almost guarantee you it's a Polaris. They always need bushings. And so I'm gonna go ahead and I probably have those as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and swap those out on here. I mean, this, if all goes well, I'll technically be putting no extra cash into this unit. And we'll see. I did spend about 60 bucks in fuel going and getting this thing, and I honestly did not want to go get it because this was 3 hours away, one way, just a slightly, like 3 hours and 10 minutes. And then I had been driving all day, and going and getting this meant I wasn't gonna get home till after midnight already, and I had left my house at like 5 a.m. that day. But you gotta do what you gotta do. When the deals come up, you gotta go get them. I have not seen any other good deals this past week. And so this is our deal. And we're waiting on parts for the Ranger still. But the majority of that should come in today. So let's get started. I'm gonna tear into this thing. I'm gonna get the front half of it off and we're gonna try and see if it's actually the fuel pump that's failed or if something else has failed to make the fuel pump fail. A couple 13mm bolts. Hold this box on. In pieces. This is in component pieces. That I don't have a spare for. Oh yeah, that's right. The parts that screw into the fender. This was a stupid design because that cakes with mud. You can't hardly get in there to get these out. Now I know a lot of y'all wanted to see that Foreman 500 get fixed, but I ended up selling it over the, might have been Monday or Sunday, to one of the viewers of the channel, which is pretty cool. See what I mean? Like, these things are just full of dirt. I'm trying to just find the bolt. It's got a couple sheet metal screws holding it together too. Size is this in metric, not a 7. 2-piece. All right, pop this right here off. Why is the ECU not bolted down? It's odd. It's all right, no big deal. These plastics off of here and then we can troubleshoot what's going on with the fuel pump. Pop the fuel cap off. Ah! I'll drink of water. Front fender is off. So normally I would put power direct to it, but I ruined my battery and while I'm waiting on a new battery to come in, we're just gonna put this pump on here. And I know this one works for a fact. And let's try to power it up and see what happens. All right, got a half battery on it. Let's see, does this fuel pump work? Oh. Oh man, I forgot that I probably should have got the gas out of it first. But that is our problem. So we need the fuel pump. I'm not gonna lie, I am tired today. That almost got my phone. Okay, so we will have to pull this tank. Go ahead and pull this pod and see what's broken here. It's put together with these specialty universal tie pods. I was looking for wasps and there's a nest in here, but not a live one. I'm allergic and it is not uncommon for the wasps to end up in the pod. I don't know what they go for the pod for, but they do. Sweet. I was worried it was gonna be the light that was broken. It's this base piece. It's fine, I got a replacement for that. Take the ignition out of this. Yeah, everything looks good in here. I don't know what I want to do with this heated grip situation. They got something going on here where they're like hot wired to be working constantly. These things look like ass anyway, so I might just take them off. Well, either way, the tank does have to come off to be able to get to the steering stem bushing on this one. Some of the older ones it didn't, but maybe not just it. Maybe not the tank has to come off, but this thing right here definitely does. This generation of these things though, man, these were some of the tightest fitting setups. This tank and this intake boot and everything, right? Not intake boot, but the clutch duct. It's like, this has to go forward down here where it meets the clutch cover. This needs to come up. Luckily, they're pretty hard to break, so. And if I do break it, I got lots of them. I ain't gonna lie, they're not normally this hard to get off, so I'm wondering if that steering stem's bent. We're hitting the steering stem bushing holder. That's definitely what the problem is. It's not that I don't know if the stem's bent too, But you see that right there? That should be flat all the way across. And we got a little arch down right there. So something smacked into this thing pretty hard. Really not that big a deal, I can bend that back. It means one thing, well, I ain't gonna get this off its force. There we go. And like I said, we didn't break it. These are strong plastic. Very, very strong plastic. Let's get our tank back a little bit. Just need enough to get in there and get to that fuel pump. Hey, an acorn. I think it's been there for a minute. Blow it off. Couple of T25s here. Well, I remember somebody on the channel said if you smack these, they'll start working again. Let's try it. It's not gonna work on this one, that's for sure. And this has 1,090 hours on it, 8,110 miles. So it's pretty high. That battery will have to get replaced. The Sportsman 550 that we did on the last video, that's the battery that's in there. Now that battery, it will get the job done for a carb unit, but these here EFIs are so picky when it comes to a battery. So the Sportsman 550 ran and drove great. We're good to go. And then it kind of got to this point where like I would ride it, kill it, go to start it, it'd do nothing. It would do this click sound, like it wasn't getting any power. And it started throwing a code for the, shit, I forget what it was. Anyway, I can't remember the name of the code. But the code it was throwing was something to do with the throttle body. It wasn't the TPS. I know what sensor it is. It's the big one on the side, but for the life of me, I cannot remember what it was called at the moment. Maybe I need to pull the tank anyways, because I don't think, well, don't need to pull it all the way. Yep, there's a certain way this goes in and out, and I was not doing it. Here I was thinking this thing had no fuel in it, but it does. Rank, stank ass fuel. Huh, that pump don't even look that bad. We're gonna go ahead and pump this old fuel out of here while we're at it. Oh yeah, look at that, it's coming out yellow. Looks like a nice big tank of piss. Gas ain't that color. Sucked out a little bit of pine needles and plastic. Put some gas in here and see if it will start under its own power and run. New fuel pumps in, new used fuel pumps in. It'll get the job done. Prime this pump a couple times. Yep, just sounded like it built some pressure just then. Headlights work. That's good news. There she goes. Now this thing will run like shit without this on there. About to start losing stuff. Sounds good. Sounds healthy. In part. Oh, gotta finish putting this back on. Sounds good. Let's see if it says four-wheel drive's working. You know what, screw it, we'll take it for a test ride. Things all rattling apart. I didn't put anything back together. High gear works. Rear brakes work. Let's go to low. Low's working. Put it in reverse. Reverse is working. A little bit of noise coming from up there. the breather hose is off. Feels like four-wheel drive's working. I'll test a little bit more later. Pull it back at the shop. So as far as I can tell, we just kind of need to put everything back together, all these missing pieces, and we'll be good to go. This thing is good to go up for sale. So I'm gonna go get some grips, seat cover material, and a battery. I can get all that stuff local. The seat cover material, it's not necessarily fantastic and it's not the best looking stuff in the world, but I don't know, I'd prefer to buy a new seat, but I'd have to wait like a week and a half, 2 weeks for that, and I don't want to do it. All right, now we got everything. I started taking this apart and man, look at that air filter. I was in here, nasty. That ain't been changed in a minute, but I thought I had some new ones. But I got this K&N, it's not in bad shape. I'm gonna put that on there, get this going. So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna just start from the front, work my way back, just kind of get it all knocked out. I mean, at this point, the most time-consuming part that I have is the axle situation. I have a stack of parts over there for this, and it shouldn't be a big deal. Probably take me an hour or two to knock this thing out. I did completely screw up and forget to get grips. Whoops. Oh yeah, that's bad. This thing took a hit. Now the real question is to bend that back or to just go pull a whole stem. Guess we'll see how much force it takes to bend it back. I don't want it to break on someone. So if I don't feel like it's gonna be legit, I ain't gonna mess with it. This is what they had in there for the steering stem bushing. Do you know what that is? Does that look familiar to anybody? That looks like a bicycle grip to me. If you're not familiar with these Polarises, this is what the correct one will look like. This is a two-piece design, kind of goes like that over both sides. You make sure you get grease in there, otherwise these wear out extremely quickly. I honestly don't know if this is gonna work. Now I remember bending one of these back years ago, but I don't remember how I did it. Worst case, I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. It's working. Oh, we bent the shit out of that though. Dang it. I'm gonna try this from a different angle. I think I'm happy with that right there, that's for sure. Bend that brace back too, right here. It's not perfectly flat, but let's go for a little bit more. Pipe wrench has had a rough life, if you can't tell. Just a little bit bent. I need to buy a new one. I think I just bent it some more. All right, so I got all this back together. It's bent back and it's good enough. It's not nice, but it got the job done. Was able to heat that and get it all back down. I had to pull the tank. That was a lot of heating and a lot of beating, but we got it. And one thing I noticed as I was standing here, I was just kind of thinking, I was like, hey, why is the plug still on there? I guess the wires for this just got completely cut off, so I gotta figure out what's up with that before we put it all back together. Probably have to solder on another set of wires. So I finally found these two in the harness. Get the brown, that, and there was just like a little bitty stub next to some electrical tape. So we're gonna get that fixed. And I'm probably gonna have to extend these just a little bit. So as much as I wanted this to be like a knock it all out, not spend any money out of pocket on parts, looks like I was wrong. So one dilemma we have is the intake boot. I mean, that's just too far gone. There's nothing I can do about it. I have an airbox I can use, but this boot won't work for that airbox. It's not, the boot will work. This boot is longer than that boot. And there's a bushing on the shifter bell housing crank right there. It's gone, causing it to have a bunch of play. And I do not have the exhaust heat shield. There was something else and I'm forgetting what it was. I wrote it down. Oh yeah, this front master cylinder cover. I don't have one and that's broke. I'm not gonna ghetto rig it. So I'm gonna order some parts and I'll be back. We'll get this thing knocked out because as of now, it's just that, and this rack, change oil. This thing runs good, rides good. Oh, I got grips coming, that's right. I'm gonna take these heated grips off. All right, I am back. Got some parts in for this Sportsman. Now I screwed myself just a little bit. So when I went to strip the 800, I broke one of the axles and was able to get the other one out in good shape. If you don't know, on the 800s, the 500s, all of them, on the rear only, you can knock the axle out from the other side. Well, I went to pull the one side axle out, and whenever it finally started to let out, it broke off the other side. I couldn't get it back together. Anyway, had to order an axle, so I'm gonna be waiting on that for a little bit, till tomorrow, hopefully, worst case. But we got all the other parts in. Gotta get all this good stuff put on. New intake boot. Luckily, these aren't too expensive from Polaris. That heat shield, I feel really stupid having to pay for, because I throw a lot of those away. Grips, battery strap. These things are always missing the battery strap. I guess people go to change the battery and they're just like, I don't need it, chunk it. Hey, and so I pulled this off the 800. If anybody doesn't know this, these snails that look old and dried up like this, if you put them in just a little bit of water, not enough to like drown it, they'll come back to life. It's the craziest thing. I get those out of South Texas. Where that thing came from was Central Texas-ish. But we gotta get the oil changed on it, get everything put back together. I screwed up though. I was gonna pull that rotor just for the time being to put it on the Ranger. Turns out the hub, all of that's seized. So I destroyed the axle in the process. That's why we need another axle. This shouldn't take too much time today. The biggest dilemma of all of it is really pulling apart the rear end of this thing, because that, if it ends up being an ordeal, then it's an ordeal. I know for sure one side's gonna need a bearing, which I have, but if the other side needs a bearing, I don't have. Hopefully not, hopefully not. It was supposed to just need that left side axle. Stupid. You know, we all make mistakes. Sometimes you go to take something apart and it hasn't been taken apart since it was brand new. So, or somebody took it apart and put it back together and didn't lubricate anything. And that's what happens. I mean, when I put stuff back together, I put grease on every spline, every piece that's metal to metal contact, just because, worst case, if I have to take it back apart, I know it's gonna come apart easy. But the next guy, when he goes to take it apart, he's not struggling with this not wanting to come off like I am with that. Because honestly, there's a good chance that hub and that knuckle are gonna be trash, because I cannot get the axle out of it. So we'll see. I'm gonna try today though. Put our lid back on. Put some new grips on here. I actually really like these Tusk grips. They had a sale going. I got that First Line spray for the gloss coat for $2.99 a can. And no joke, I use spray paint to install grips. Somebody told me about this years ago, because I used to use hairspray, and if you use too much, it doesn't work. It ends up just sliding on and off the grip because it never has the opportunity to dry. But if you use too little, it would, like, you couldn't get the grip all the way on. Spray paint actually works fantastic. And I've never had an issue out of it. I don't know if I'd do that if I was using something other than black grips though. I like the Tusk grips, but you know, that may be coming from me being, I don't much care for the waffle. I like the no waffle grips. Personally on the quads, like sport quads, this is better on, in my opinion. The ODI Rogue too, that one's a nice grip, but that's more like a pillowy grip. All right, put this heat shield on real quick. Nice and shiny on all this old rusty shit. Speaking of old rusty shit, if you've been following some of the other shop vlogs and saw some of the past videos with the 800 I was debating on fixing. Sometimes everything happens for a reason, and I don't want to hear it most of the time, but my wife tells me that as I'm doing it, and I don't want to do it. That thing was completely clapped. And if I would have fixed it, it would have turned into the biggest money pit. The biggest money pit. I'll attach some pictures of it. I didn't undo any of the motor mounts to remove it. No joke. I did not undo a single motor mount. They were all broken. And so the engine was riding on the prop shaft for the front. So that front, the one towards the transmission, the U-joint, was just it wore into the engine and it wore the thing down. There was a terrible oil leak down there, and I still haven't figured out from where. Not to admit, like, if I would have tried to sell that thing as it was, it'd have been one of two things. I'm either screwing somebody and lying about what's actually wrong with it, or telling the truth and nobody'd pay anything for it. That's the only plus side to being able to part something out, is I'll be able to take what would have been a major, I don't know if I'd call it loss, or major loss, but it's just definitely an L. You know, it wasn't a win, that's for sure. So now I'll part it out and I'll make money on it, and it'll be a donor unit for other machines in the future. You win some, you lose some, and that's like a lot of what I buy. It's a big gamble of whether it's trash or if it's a solid unit. And that's just a fact. I mean, anybody who actually goes out and buys this stuff to fix it and resell it, they'll tell you the same thing. And you'll run into the same problem, even if you're buying nicer stuff than this. I mean, I wouldn't say this is like some clapped ass quad, but like at the end of the day, sometimes you can only get what you can get. And like you go out and buy something, it's cheap, it's quick fix. Kind of like the 550, that didn't take much. This right here, this is definitely taken more than I expected, but still nothing crazy. I don't regret buying it. The 700, well, that video probably wouldn't have, this will probably drop before that one. You know, some of the other machines I've bought they've taken more and some of them have taken less. The last 6x6 I bought, the nicer one, the 02 with title, I mean, that thing didn't need much. I had to do what, bushings and a motor? And I think I had more time and drive time getting it than I did, you know, fixing it. Where the previous 6x6, I probably would have made more money parting it out, just because by the time I, you know, swapped the motor, rebuilt the top end, go back and have to fix the transmission and all the other issues I don't even remember now. It gave me PTSD. I probably won't look at another 6x6. But, you know, sometimes you lose them, and that's just how it goes. So it seems like everything kind of happens in phases for me. So like, even when I was selling parts, it was like, if I sold a flywheel on Monday, I would sell 5 or 6, 7, 8 flywheels. I'd sell quite a bit of flywheels throughout the week and the following week, but I wouldn't sell any crankcases. And then a couple weeks would go by and then it would just be crankcase after crankcase after crankcase. And it's kind of the same thing with this stuff. It's like, you know, I'll just back to back buying Rangers. I have a huge stash of used cams, used OEM cams, because there was at one point I was just going through and I was buying these 500s, and this one needed a cam, this one needed a cam, this one needed a cam, all flat exhaust lobes, which they're known for. And I'm actually pretty fast at swapping them at this point. I think I can do a cam swap on one of these things in like an hour, hour and a half maybe. If I don't have any other issues like having to clean the carbs, stuff like that. So you win some, you lose some. And that 800 was a loss. I'll still profit from it. And I guess that's the key. You know, we're still gonna make money because the transmission's good on it. That's $400 or so. The motor I was going to hang on to and try to find a 2010 Ranger to drop it into, because evidently the 800 ATV motor will only fit in the 800 2010 model. Now I bet that has to do with the camshaft position sensor, not camshaft, crankshaft position sensor, because on the 08 to 10 Razor, I know for sure that 08 to 10 Razor 800, that position sensor is on the stator cover versus on the 11, 12, and 13 model, that sensor is in the crankcase. And I know that because we swapped, I had a good running 08 motor that we dropped in a 2012, got everything bolted up. Literally, last thing to do is I was coming around that side of the motor to hook that sensor up. I had already put the clutches on, done all that shit, and then found out that the sensor wouldn't work. Had to pull it all back out. And that's when I rebuilt that motor for the first time, which is a lot easier than it sounds. Now we're gonna tackle this. Hopefully all this comes out, most likely, and I've had this happen in the past. I'm gonna have to unbolt this down here and basically pull it all at once. Hopefully the axle comes out nice and easy and doesn't fight me, because otherwise we're gonna have fun with this. And then take apart that side. I'll knock this axle out one way, because there ain't no need. If I gotta pull both axles anyways, I'm not gonna sit here and fight either one of them to try to make it work. And as I'm looking at these threads, once I get this off and apart, I might see if I can repair the threads on the end of this axle, because there is definitely enough meat there if I can make that, if I could fix that. Never done that before, but I have to make sure I'd be comfortable with it. That is if I can even get it out without destroying everything, because years and years of doing salvage, I learned that I was very destructive. Very destructive. Oh yeah, that sucks. It's not even that, that's the problem. It's seized into here. Golly, destroyed that axle for no reason. That's the only thing for preventing this thing from being done today. That side axle does not want to come out. Let's come over here and see if this one can be convinced to get out of here. Sweet. Be like this sometimes. Ah, yeah, boy. Now that would not have came out without this tool. Just the regular tugging on the biaxle, nah, not a chance. I tell you what, every time one of these axles wants to fight me and I get it out of there, I feel like a winner, a real winner. I just put all of it back together. Like I said, for this one for today, we're waiting on the axle. Hopefully it comes in tomorrow. I ordered it and it's not very far away from me. I was gonna swap this rear rack, but the more I look at it, mine's really not much better shape than that one. So I'm just gonna leave that on there. And I screwed up. So I thought I had an oil filter. I thought I had 3 of them sitting over there. Turns out I don't. I went to screw it on, and that's for the 700s and 800s that I have sitting over there. You can put a 500 filter on that, but not an 800 or 700 filter on that, because the filter is concave where it threads down on those, where the seal won't seal up against the mating surface, where on the other way around, that one comes in. Maybe I'm calling that wrong, maybe convex and concave. I don't know, I didn't pay too much attention back in school, so. We gotta wait on that axle, and then it would appear this thing needs the axle and a good cleaning, and it would be done. This thing should turn out pretty decent. So we're waiting on the mail, waiting on parts. So one of the parts we're waiting on is this replacement axle, and USPS decided to lose it or something. I don't know. Whatever happened, it was supposed to be here yesterday, and it's not even showing any kind of updates. They lost 4 parts in total. I was bored and decided I'd just learn how to rebuild an axle. I rebuilt this one out of some pieces from other axles, and honestly was not as hard as I thought it'd be. I've always just replaced them instead of rebuilding them. And honestly, as cheap as these are, it's not worthwhile rebuilding them. I'd rather replace it, and it seemed more reliable to me. But here we are. We just gotta get this thing back together. And so, also, at the same time of doing all this, while I originally anticipated putting these wheels on the Ranger looked like shit with them. So I tried it out on this, and they're actually a pretty good addition. They sit in a little bit on the back more than I'd like. So like a 1/2-inch spacer would probably make it look fantastic, but is what it is. They look good on here, for the most part. The Ranger, I put the wheels that were on this on the Ranger because I needed to solve the I didn't buy tires dilemma. And this doesn't look too bad with them. At this point, we should be good to test ride it, make sure everything works. One thing that did suck is I ended up having to do, I had to take the wheel hubs off of the 800 that I parted out and put all the hubs on there. So I had to take it all back apart and put those hubs on there, because to use these wheels or pretty much any of the other wheel, you have to have longer studs, because these flat lug nuts that are on most of these Sportsmans, most of these Rangers, require just a very thin flat wheel, where like those ones, they're thicker. I guess I wonder if any aftermarket wheel requires that. But they don't look too bad on there. Some good tread life. I'm gonna take this thing for a test ride, make sure it's all good, and then wash it up. All right, now we can take it for a drive. So mechanically, it's gravy. Stops good. Well, I can't use the front master. But rear brakes work well. Rear brakes work great. Riding good. Solid used unit, cheap. Definitely didn't turn out as nice as I wanted. Let's go wash it real quick and see how it looks. All right, there it is. Now it looks a lot better in the photos than it does in person. But anyway, I'm not exactly like happy, ecstatic with it, but it's a cheap unit that I plan to let go pretty cheap. I think it's worth about $1,400. In all honesty, especially since the gauge has decided that it's starting to go out now. It's on and off, and I have another gauge I could throw on it, but that other gauge says like 100 hours. And I know if I throw that gauge on this thing, and that it says it has 100 hours, some flipper will come by it. I'll still put in the ad that it's got whatever, it's like 1,000 something. I'll put that in the ad, but somebody will come along and buy this thing and they'll take it and put it back on marketplaces. Oh, it only has 100 hours. Super clean quad. There's a lot of people on marketplace, I swear to God, that would call this thing fucking mint. And it's not. Mechanically, solid. Runs great, drives great, four-wheel drive works. She's golden. So I'm gonna sell it with the gauge a little messed up. It is what it is. I'd rather be honest with somebody and be truthful than, you know, leave that door of opportunity for somebody to get fucked. Let's see if it'll work this time. See, it kicked on there for a second. And if you remember, the backside of this gauge is all busted, so. But I think it's worth about $1,400. I'll probably list it a little bit higher than that. That's pretty cheap for 07 EFI or 06. I have to double check that now, I done forgot. This was never, like when I was buying it, and initially I wanted to make it a $2,500, $2,800 unit. But being Christmas is almost here, you know, I'd rather move this thing fast. I don't care. I'm not gonna make as much off of it because of that, but I mean, it's a high hour unit. It is definitely not a good looking unit. It looks okay, in my opinion. I'm picky. Let me know your opinion. Would you let this go that cheap? Like, is this, because I know up north, this thing is probably still worth 25, and in mint condition, it's actually worth $4,000. I'm down here in the south. It's like 50 degrees outside, and I'm like, it's too cold to ride. Y'all are probably riding in the snow up there. I need to get me some winter gear, that's for sure. Especially washing this stuff outside in the cold is for the birds. Thanks for watching. Let me know what y'all think. Would y'all just sell it like it is? I mean, because I got that gauge, it's got 100 hours on it, but I don't know, I feel like it's dishonest. Even if I put that on there, how many hours it really has, it's gonna get passed on to somebody else as a 100-hour unit.